IQ is massively misunderstood. So the way to think about IQ, which has been going up over the 20th century by quite a bit. So if you rescale modern scores to 1900, it's about 70. It's called the Flynn effect. I think that those are cognitive abilities for navigating the institutional world that we've constructed.
Yeah.
And a huge mistake would be to assume that those are the right cognitive abilities for the next century. So it'll be a different constellation. If you study, we study herders and cognitive abilities of herders in northern Namibia. And if you're in northern Namibia, you got to be able to move through the landscape. So being able to just pick a direction and know where you're going and not get lost is super important. So different suites of cognitive abilities are favored in different environments. This idea that there's this generalized thing applicable across all human environments just doesn't, education massively increases your IQ, right? If you're uneducated, you have a totally different IQ.
And then is the way in which your horsepower is directed, is that a thing that you think is basically set by the time you're an adult? Or like if somebody's 30 now and the AI thing is going to happen next and they have to like totally reorient away from knowledge work, is that a thing?
Well, so I think it's a continuous scale. So if you look at human brains, they're developing and continuing to add new connections and stuff, at least into the mid-20s. Now, there could be even more plasticity after that. Unlike chimps, we're still not totally myelinized for our whole lives. So there's definitely room. It's just there's less room.
And then, so you mentioned, look, there's these cognitive tools that are added on to our maybe biological
genetic.
Yeah, so like there's like number system and something that makes it easier for you to think about certain topics. How far does that go? Is there like enough sort of software I could add to my brain such that I can be like as smart as John von Neumann at some relevant?
Well, I don't think you want to think about this. So, obviously there's genetic differences among humans that predispose them to different kinds of abilities. I think one tendency, many of us are analytic thinkers, which means we tend to want to reduce everything to one dimension. But it could be that there's different kinds of cognitive abilities. So when they study the collective intelligence of groups, it turns out it's good to have diverse cognitive abilities. And you can't just, the overall problem-solving ability of the group in lots of range of problems depends on the cognitive diversity in the group.
How come?
Well, because people contribute different parts of the problem. Some people, can see the forest, and other people can just see the trees, and you got to see both, right?
And then if you think about the size of an ancestral group, I don't know how you think about the effective size, given that they were probably communicating with each other. But would there be selective pressure for variance in cognitive ability if you have a tribe of like 1,000 people or something?
Yeah, sure. There could have been lots of variation in different kinds of cognitive skills. So I was just mentioning the absolute dead reckoning. Part of that depends on your language. So English has 3 different reference systems. So we have left and right, and there's north, south, east, and west, and then there's a relative one, which is like, I'll meet you to the left of the building, which uses a line. And so, but lots of languages just have north, south, east, and west, and so people do everything in absolute directions. So at any moment you can say point north and they all get it right. Whereas people around here lack that cognitive ability. And in this environment, okay, that's fine, I got Google Maps, but in lots of other environments, that's life and death, right?
Yeah. Sometimes people point out, look, certain languages don't have a concrete sense of time. And Steven Pinker tried to debunk that in one of those books where he was saying that, look, no, they can understand the concept of the past and the future. Fundamentally, if you talk to somebody 50,000 years ago, if you learn that language, do you expect anything to be like so alien, such concepts that are so alien that like you really just like could not understand them, even if you sat with them for a decade or something? Well,
so the way to think about it is think about the pieces of language that demand your attention every time you use the language. So something like how you use space, so using the terms right and left. Well, if we're using right and left while we're growing up, it's a handy tool to use later, and we can organize driving and other kinds of things about the world, how to set a table by doing right and left. But children have a long time to learn the right from left, and it's not always easy to tell which right and left. And so this is a cognitive ability we get as we grow up because we have this language. So language has lots of concepts like that in it, and it's going to affect your ability to solve all kinds of problems. And the world's full of so we were talking about this placing faith in prior generations and that leading to religion. But, angels and germs are both invisible, and most of us have seen neither of them. But one's real, at least in my take, and the other is probably not. But when you're a little kid, I don't know, they say there's angels and germs. I guess I should pay attention to both of these.